The mother of the three children had left home, leaving the kids with the stepfather. And she went to do some errands, and she returned around 5 p.m. thereabout. And when she came back, she met the stepfather at the house. He told her certain things. And when she went in, she encountered the first child who was in a state of unconsciousness. She managed to rush him to the hospital, and upon reaching there, he was pronounced dead shortly thereafter. Police were called to the hospital, where they went and they observed the child. And may I say that the photographs being circulated on social media with a child with his head split open, that is not the child. Subsequent to that, the police visited the home, and there they encountered the other two children, and they too were exhibiting signs of violence, and so they were taken to the hospital by the police. Those other two children are currently admitted, if still, but they were not seriously injured. They were stable, and they were on their way to recover. So that is where we are currently. I must say that when it comes to the mother, there is some degree of negligence on her part, and we will have to look to see how we are going to address the issue where she's concerned, bearing in mind the fact that she's already going through a very terrible time at this juncture. And so we want to ensure that whatever we do will be done in a way that it will be reasonable in the circumstances.
From your account that you have given to us, or from what your officers gave to you at the time of this incident in the house, there seems to be no indication that there was any eyewitnesses. What does this do for the legal case that the police department will be mounting against this particular individual?
The best evidence lies direct evidence. The second best evidence is circumstantial evidence. And so we believe that we do have sufficient to be able to charge and convict. I'm not going to go into too much details because we're not trying the matter here. But there are other evidence separate and apart from that we will be relying on when the time comes for trial.
And can you kindly, give some kind of reassurance that I know in cases like these you have individuals who wanting to get their job done may have treated this particular perpetrator in a manner that they shouldn't have and might could get off a technicality. This was some information that was going on social media. Can you speak to that?
Well, like I said before, that as a department, though we may be disturbed by the entire situation, because for the most part we are parents, right? And we must not allow our emotions to get the best of us. The primary thing we must always focus on is to ensure that we deal with suspects in a manner that will not hinder a successful prosecution. And we find that whenever we deal with persons and we abuse them, this is used later on in trial, and then the person is walked, confessions not admitted, and these sort of things. And so I must commend the officers who went to the area and did the pickup, those who were in pursuit, to have ensured that everything was followed to a T, that nobody lifted not even a finger on the individual, to make sure that he was brought in one piece as we found him. And again, during the initial stage of the interviews and these sort of things, CIB ensured again that we follow everything to a T, because we want that if or when we go to trial, that we'll be able to cross our T's and dot our I's to be able to get a conviction. And so I'm happy that considering the circumstances, nobody used any sort of physical force against the individual.
Also, is there any report that had been filed against him before, like in a domestic setting? And then are you able to clarify if there's anyone else who will be charged in any way for probably assisting him at all?
Well, you all can look up your history where Kendrick Langsworth is concerned, and he do have a long rap sheet, including shooting at police. And it's disappointing to see what had happened where he is concerned, because everyone within that area knows him and knows what he's capable of, but yet still he was able to become stepfather for 3 children. That's a matter that we need to look into as a society. In terms of aiding him, we do have information as to a person who was aiding him, but there is not sufficient that we can use to be able to charge that individual. And so at this time, we are not contemplating charges against any individual, any person for aiding him.
And where he was hiding?
In Isabella Bank.
But
I'm not going to go into specifics.
And then, are you able to clarify, because when there was information originally about the incident, there was a report that there was an element of sexual abuse involved. Will the police indicate if they are investigating such an element? And I know if you are, and charges are to be filed in relation to that, then that would come.
I have seen in social media that they were suggesting that the other two children, the surviving kids, have been sexually molested. Let me refute that here once and for all. The doctors have examined those two children and there's no sign of them being sexually molested. As it relates to the third child that died, I'm not going to go into that. As you know that the United Nations Declaration on the Protection of on the Rights of a Child, as well as our own Families and Children's Act, do makes provision for us to be able to conceal the identity of children, whether victims or having accused of committing a crime, from being revealed. And so we have that responsibility to ensure that we, even though I know that many people already know who the child is, but we are not going to enhance that by adding to it to put the identity of a child out there.
Sir, are you able to say if indeed the weapon used was a hammer?
No, it's not a hammer. From what we observe, it may have been some board, because the injuries is more like a blunt object and not a hammer, as was again said by people in social media.
I know you're restrained in how much you can say about the internal elements, but you said he gave certain information to the mother of the children before she went there. Had he indicated if he was trying to discipline the children, or what? Is there an indication of what he was trying to accomplish?
Well, there is some element of that, yes, but again, we're not going to go into too much details where that is concerned.
Involvement of human services at this point?
Of course, they are a very important part of the investigation, and Mr. Kowo and Ms. Reese, who are the ones dealing with the investigation, are in constant dialogue with human services, because again, they need to look at the welfare of the other two children. Will a decision be made as to whether or not they remain with the mother, or do they have to be relocated? So there are several components that must be allowed to play out.